Hi everyone, happy International Women's Health Day. I'm Paige from Rappler Social Media Team.
And I'm Margie, also from Rappler Social Media Team.
And I'm Natasha. I'm the regional correspondent for Southeast Asia.
Alright, so today it's International Women's Health Day and we will be talking about reproductive rights, contraception, and basically this will just be a casual conversation where we will be sharing our stories, and at the same time we're trying out a new format where we will be interacting with you in the comments and we want to hear what you guys have to say. Now what's really exciting about today is that we're trying out this thing where we could loop in our viewers. So if you're watching on your iPhones, on the Facebook app, if you just tweak your privacy settings for a bit, we could definitely have you inset in videos. It's going to be like a video call where we could basically talk to you in the comments. So this conversation is within the context of this new campaign. It's called #PinayTakeAction. This initiative is with Girl Gang Manila, where basically we are lobbying for the lifting of the TRO for the contraceptives. There was the development recently with a new decision, and we're going to touch on that a bit. But since this is a light conversation and we will be talking about our personal experiences, let's start off first about how we first thought about our age. Like, when was the first time you thought about our age, and what did you do about it? So maybe let's start with Natasha.
Sure. So I spent some time in the U.S. I was fortunate enough to spend my college years there, and which was actually the first time that I thought of using contraception was after graduating. And in the U.S., a lot of people, the conversation around reproductive health and contraception was very open. Right. And so that's where the curiosity first started. It was first sparked. And in college itself, it was very easy to access pills, and any sort of contraceptions were available to us. And so at the school clinic in my university, it was free for students.
Wow.
Yes, so it was never, to me, it was never anything that was difficult to obtain. Right. And then after college, Planned Parenthood filled that gap and was able to provide whatever contraceptives you were using in college that was provided for free. So when I first moved back to the Philippines and I realized it wasn't as easy, I think that was the first time that I realized that it wasn't the case for Filipinos.
Not here at all, yeah.
Yes, and so when the RH bill conversation first started, I was very supportive. Not necessarily to encourage people to use it, but just so that it's available for women who want it and who have made that choice for their own bodies. So that was sort of when it first came into consciousness for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off because I'm going to be switching back and forth behind the camera, and so I could loop you guys in. So if you're watching right now, again, if you're just tuning in, if you're watching your iPhones on the Facebook app, we would love to hear your stories. So I'll be going back and forth. On my end, it started in high school because we had
It's a video.
It's a live video.
Yeah.
She's so supportive. She's watching us while she's live.
I want to see your comment. Why? Okay, all right.
So, for me, it was when we were given sex ed in high school, and then I realized, because I came from a Catholic school in grade school, I realized that it wasn't the case for everyone. And then when I started going to college, I know a lot of people who started getting pregnant, and there was, when you're in college and you're like experimenting, right? There's like a lot of myths surrounding like how to not get pregnant.
Misinformation, yeah.
And it was stressing me out because I thought it was basic that these are the things you do. And then for a lot of people, they're like, I've never done it before. This is my first time. I probably wouldn't get pregnant. Or some people were swearing by paracetamol for some reason.
Paracetamol?
Yeah, and I was so stressed out about it because it didn't make sense because I had that background and I thought it was common knowledge for everyone. Mm-hmm. So when the RH law and the debate started happening, it was a touchy topic for me because I have friends of friends who were believing these things, and it felt like it was something that was really important, and it's something that a lot of people take for granted.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, it's obvious, but then for a majority of other people, they don't have the access or the information, and that was when I first really started caring about it.
Yeah.
So, Margie.
For me, well, I started getting sexually active at 17, and around this time, what do you call this? The internet wasn't that accessible yet. I guess this will like date me, but so I didn't have that much information on being safe during sex. So I didn't really know what I was doing then, and every single time I had sex, like it was a very scary thing. Like afterwards, I'd always think like, oh my god, this is it, I'm pregnant. And of course, that would send me this tailspin, and that would stop my period from coming in at the right time.
Yeah,
it would stress me out.
Stress, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd always think like I'd always have this pregnancy panic every single time. It was horrible. But I was lucky enough to be able to do research later on when the internet was a little more accessible. So from I guess like 20 years old onwards, I kind of knew enough, but it was definitely not from any official person. It wasn't like I didn't have any mentor, I didn't have teachers, like nobody taught me these things. I just found it from the internet.
It had to be your own initiative.
Yeah, and I had to find it, I had to make sure that I was getting my information from official sources,
Right.
from good sources. And I mean, I was only 20 then, I didn't really know much. So I was really, it was a big risk for me to take this information seriously. Like I wasn't 100% sure of what I was doing. And I started taking contraceptive pills, I think when I was around 23.
Wow,
And
so much later. than
yeah,
you
much
were
later, yeah. So there was like
active.
several years that I was just like, I don't know, just winging it, I guess.
Yeah, which
And
is, it's so...
It's incredibly dangerous.
And stressful.
Yeah, very, very stressful.
Mhm.
And I remember when I bought my first pack of pills, like there was this, there's really this stigma when you come up to the counter and you ask for it, like you couldn't look the pharmacist in the eye.
Yeah, I totally agree, yeah.
Yeah. I mean now I
Of course,
couldn't
of course.
care less, yeah. But when you're a kid and you aren't sure what you're doing and you feel like you're being judged when you're doing it, like this kind of stigma really has to end, because contraceptive pills really have to be, or reproductive health really has to be like a very normal part.
Yeah, and that's the worst part, right? Because there's no one actually mentoring you. So a lot of what we learn are our own initiative. Sometimes it's too late. One of the comments here did say, it was too late for me. Only when I became a mom did I realize the importance of reproductive health.
Right.
But a lot of the time, you have to do it yourself, right? And even if OB gynecologists are there and available, sometimes there's also stigma with medical practitioners,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you have to go on your own because it's hard to also tell your mothers in this very conservative Filipino culture. So there definitely has to be a conversation that makes it open and free. And when you were talking about kind of that stigma or that judgment that you felt came from the counter,
Yeah.
I think though that when you got that pill, I'm sure that the relief of
sure.
knowing that you were protected
Yeah.
was also so great.
Of course,
right? Yeah.
And I would never like stop taking it unless
because of
yeah. I mean, once I started taking that pill when I was 23, I haven't stopped. I'm 31 now. And I've continued taking it, and I've had like incredibly normal periods. I've never gotten pregnant or anything. So like I'm just very confident in it, and
Right.
it breaks my heart that contraceptive use is now in danger here in the Philippines.
So we're gonna go through the comments. Here we have Raisa. She's also from Rappler. She said she learned about reproductive health in high school, and she remembers how the boys in her class would tease her, and each other, especially the girls. So it's a scary topic to discuss. Even so, you guys were talking about like the stigma, like going to the counter asking for help, and then that thing starts even as early as high school.
Yeah.
Did you ever go through that thing where they separated the girls from the boys? Things like that. Yeah, because like some schools do that. They separate the girls from the boys when
During
they talk
sex
about
talks?
Yeah, when they talk about sex talks, it's
Oh my
like it's a
God.
different sex talk for girls.
Yeah.
So-
Oh my God. Okay.
I don't know. For my school, I didn't really have that experience. Thankfully, like getting teased when you talk
Yeah.
about our age. So yeah, it's that stigma as early on that makes you afraid to talk about it. That makes you afraid to ask for help. Marga, who's also from Rappers, tuning in, she says her formative years were spent in Saints Paul, and it was a very progressive Catholic school. So their lessons on RH were mandatory, and then there was no beating around the bush, no euphemisms.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Not the case for
And
many,
very
many
rare.
schools,
Yeah. G, who is also from Rappler, she's she's on the health beat for Rappler. She said that in college I already heard of the debates surrounding the RH bill, but it was not until I was already a reporter for Rappler when she started learning about the many issues on the RH bill. Like, I'd like to point out that a lot of this stigma comes from what the misinformation that certain groups are sharing with people in the Philippines, specifically people from the Catholic Church, and I remember during the RH bill, the fight for the RH bill several years ago, I was part of this organization that was also linked up with other orgs like the Kaan, other women's groups that were pushing for the bill, and it was so frustrating that we had this information, we had the science and all the studies down pat, but because people were too afraid to question the Catholic Church and their insistence that all contraceptives were abortifacients, which most of them aren't. It was just hard to get the message across, even though we knew that so many people wanted RH. There was just this veil of vagueness and fear around it, and it really wasn't helping. And I'm glad that schools like Marga's, even though it's a Catholic school, they were very progressive about it, and we should have more of that.
Right. Oh, so if you guys are just tuning in again, we can have you on live to join us. Just please mark your comments down below with hashtag #PinayTakeAction if you want to join us live. So our next question, I guess, would be, since we did start talking about when we first started learning about RH and then how important it was in our lives, did you ever think, well, Margie says she took contraceptives, but I guess my personal experience with that, I started taking it when I entered my first adult relationship.
Adult?
Yeah, adult. I'm an adult. I'm a grown up now. So yeah, when I was in that relationship, I decided that maybe I should start becoming safe. So I looked it up, and then I went to a doctor, and then I asked for the pills, and then same with Margie's experience, I was kind of scared.
You were actually pretty responsible because you actually went to a doctor to talk about it.
Yeah,
I just straight up went to Mercury Drug.
And how did you choose which pill to take?
I just
Research?
asked. No, not even. Like,
Oh, wow.
I just went up to the counter and like, what pills do you have?
So scary.
I know, and then so she listed out the
And you're
pills.
just looking at it,
Yeah,
you don't
and
know
I'm
what's in it.
Yeah, like which one can I afford? So I got like the one in the middle range.
Yeah, but you're like, this looks
It's
reasonable.
like a wine list.
Not,
that you
yeah,
sort
like,
of
not
get
too
the middle
cheap
range.
that I'm not sure what it'll do to me, but not too expensive that I'm like kidding. Because I didn't have money then. I mean, I was just fresh out of college. I was a freelancer. Like I couldn't afford the like imported ones. So I got Althea. That's what I use. And then it was around like 200 pesos back then, and now it's like 450.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a stretch.
I think that brings out an important point, right? Like in this case, because there is no healthy discussion and you weren't able to go to a doctor, you actually put your body at risk because sometimes you don't know what the effects of certain drugs does to your body, right? So Althea may work for you, but maybe not for me or other women. It's not a one-size-fits-all for pills like this. So the more that this conversation has to be open, and women should be able to go to their OB gynecologist on their own, maybe even if you're not comfortable with talking to their mothers, without feeling that sort of stigma.
Right. On my end, when I started going into it, and I looked it up, and then I talked to my doctor, and so there was lots of factors that you have to consider, like whether or not you smoke, and then things like that. I remember going to Watson's, and I was so shy, like I just wrote it down, and like, this
You
one,
wrote
please.
it down?
Yeah, I wrote it down. I was like, and I was like shaking, and I was like, it was a dude that was the pharmacist, and I was like, I gave it to him, and then the picture on the box had a breastfeeding mother.
Oh, okay.
Because I think that's the one for smokers or something like that. Because it was a different formulation that they give breastfeeding mothers. I completely forgot because it's been a while since I started getting on that again. And then I started looking at it, I'm like, is this correct? Like, so I had to go, I don't have a child, I'm not breastfeeding. And he's like, no, kasi yan po yung sinulat ninyo. Tapos ako parang, sige, I guess. Pero kuya, para lang klaro tayo, hindi ako nagbe-breast, I don't have a kid, so are we sure? So that was kind of scary for me. And I thought about it, I was actually lucky because I know of friends who, when they did go to an OB, they get judged.
Yeah.
They get judgy OBs who ask about wala ka pang asawa, so why are you asking?
Yeah.
So and that's kind of embarrassing kasi you go to an expert and you think you get a very unbiased, impartial opinion.
Right.
And then you just get a lecture and you get shamed. I had a friend who was asked, are you still a virgin? Things like that. And then she just got a lecture about like preserving yourself. So she got shy about the information.
Right.
She said, parang po, she lied to the doctor. And then the doctor was like, lecturing her, and she never came back. And then it was a while before she gathered the courage to look for a different OB. So
I remember, like, I used to work for this big hospital, and they had to talk about reproductive health, and they actually invited this doctor who was vehemently against it for religious reasons. And I thought that was so ironic.
Yeah.
That it was a scientific community, like in the auditorium, and they were treating this person as if her arguments were valid. I'm sorry, but they are not.
Yes, right. That's why you have to. I think that's why these discussions are very important. And we also got a comment here saying that way back information is very limited and really conservative about sex reproductive health. So now students are very lucky. Do you agree with that? Yes or no? Definitely, there's more information online.
Yeah, but because of the internet, there's actually even more misinformation as well. It's a double-edged sword.
So it is important to also get it from, I guess, reliable sources.
To make sure, like, just with anything you get from the internet, no matter what topic it is, you always have to make sure that your sources are and that you are double checking about this. You're not getting duped.
Or I think even the idea that the RH bill is pro-abortion is
Right.
already a misinformation in itself. And I think there are a lot of readers who are too lazy to read, and they just read the comments of people who are anti-RH bill, and if they say, oh, RH bill is pro-abortion, and immediately that's their whole idea of it. But if you actually read the bill, that's not the case. The RH bill does not, abortion is still illegal in the Philippines.
Yeah,
it in no way promotes it. So I think that very simplistic argument that they're not anti-RH bill because it's pro-abortion, it's just plain misinformed.
Yeah. And hey, look who we have here.
So here we have Anna. Anna, you're live with us right now. Can you hear us?
Hi, I can hear you guys. Can you see me?
Yeah, we see you just fine. Hold on.
Ana Santos is another fellow Rappler, and she is our resident sexual health person and all-around awesome human being. And Anna, why don't you share with us what you commented here, like your experience in the U.S. and your experience here?
Yeah, so I was sharing that I grew up in the U.S. I lived there from the time I was 4 till I was 11. So I would always get these public service announcements, posters, everything. We were bombarded with ideas about preventing teenage pregnancy. And I've written about the most memorable ad to me was this poster that said, "Don't let a hot date turn into a due date." So that always stuck. And I always knew that there was a need to plan and there was a need for birth control. But the really ironic thing was I moved back to the Philippines when I was 11, going 12. And so being a teenager in the Philippines, I realized that, okay, I had this knowledge about the need for birth control, but I no longer knew how to access it. I didn't know how to use it. And all the other women of my age and my contemporaries at that time also weren't talking about it. And we didn't have internet. I mean, as a teenager, I didn't have internet. So where were we to go? And I'd like to just add also to issue that you guys discussed about very judgmental OBs, I have heard so many stories of women who tried to get information from doctors and were shut down. They were told, why are you having sex anyway? You should just abstain. And that impacted that first encounter with the OB, really set the tone for them moving forward. They just stopped asking. They just stopped going to the doctor. And that was really, really detrimental. So I would just say that there was no access to practical information about how to use it, where to get it. And it's, having that discussion about the health part was really, really absent for me.
Right. So, Anna, you work with certain communities, right? Like whenever you go out in the field. So, because we're coming from our backgrounds, we want to know if the experience is the same for the women in the communities that you work with, or do they even bother going to the OB at all? Things like that. Can you share that with us?
Paige, when going out to the communities, and when I talk about the communities, let's talk about the urban poor sectors, I was actually a little jealous because they were serviced by organizations like Likhaan, and the barangay health workers would go door to door knocking on the doors of women, or they would know where to go. They would go to the barangay health clinic and get access to information. So I was actually quite jealous that someone was knocking on their doors with this information, telling them where to go and how to get birth control. Now, that kind of changes when you move up the social ladder. So the women in middle-class homes, especially the very young women, would be very, very shy about even admitting that they were in a relationship where they were sexually active.
Right.
And nobody was talking to them because people would always think, she's educated, she's got financial resources, she should know where to go. But look at the three of you and how you guys just, except Natasha, because you had access in school, Margie and you, Paige, you guys, sure, you went up there to the drugstore, but you didn't know anything either. You were just, like an adventure, right? And you are that exact profile of people who think, you girls are educated, you should know, you got the money to buy these things. But see, again, it's not just about buying it, it's not just about accessing it, it's also knowing how to use it.
Right.
And picking out which birth control is appropriate for you.
Right. So for these women that you work with, do they actually go before they get pregnant, before they have kids, like as early as like when we started experimenting, not experimenting, when we started reaching out about it, like college, or is it mostly for mothers? What's the demographic?
So we have a huge teenage pregnancy problem, okay? And so I've noticed among those girls when the most, I don't know, memorable for me or the most heartbreaking conversation I had was this girl who was, she was 17 or 18 and she had just given birth to her second child. And I asked her very nicely, so are you planning now to go to take up some kind of family planning method, or what are you considering? What are you and your husband considering? And she kind of looked at me blankly and said, family planning? Hindi po ba pang mag-asawa lang yon? So, number one, how sad, right? Number one, they only start having this conversation. Also, again, she's very young. Remember, she's very young. Huh? So that age was really a barrier. It's almost like we cannot accept that our young people are having sex. Come on, let's put it out there. Young people are having sex. And I mean, those people who are my age watching, come on, think about when you started having sex yourself. We don't have the moral high ground on this. So in that case, she was very young. She was just going to think about birth control, or the options for it were given after she had already become a mother. And secondly, there was still that mental barrier for her that I'm not married to him. We live together, but we're not married. So is family planning actually for me?
Right. Because the idea, I guess it's the term that's family planning. It puts the image in your head.
Specific.
Yeah,
it's boxed in.
So I'll only think about it when I'm planning my family.
Exactly. Words matter, right? How we frame things matter. So when you say family planning, are you at 16, 17 thinking about having a family? No. Are you thinking about having sex? Most likely.
Right. And I was just thinking about it now that we're talking about family planning. Even the term birth control, people think that women only take pills if they're promiscuous, if they're having sex outside of marriage, and they're just trying not to get pregnant. But for a lot of women, birth control is more than just that. It's to regulate your period. If you want to get pregnant, you need to use birth control because your period needs to be regular. Or to like regulate your hormones. Like in my case, I'm underweight, so my period it comes, it goes. You know, for a while I wouldn't have it for like 50 days, and I would get worried like what's happening. So for me, taking birth control was more than just being in a relationship. It was also about me trying to make my body more predictable, I guess. Yeah. So I have better control about like my body. Was that the same for you as well, or was it more like a
it was really more for birth control, but I have to point out that I know some people who aren't even sexually active that need to take birth control because of conditions like PCOS.
Yeah.
So it's also important even for people who aren't sexually active. And the fact that this ERO is going to affect their health beyond sexual health is concerning. What do you call this?
It's also used for acne treatment. So even I mean, even for virgins who've never had any sexual activity need access to these contraceptives or these birth control pills simply because of a skin problem or a hormone problem.
Yeah.
So to think, I think that's one thing that we need to raise also is to take this away from these women just because some people are misinformed about the RH bill, thinking that it promotes abortion, which has been the main reason or main kind of, cause that anti-RH bill proponents are using. It's just absolutely, I mean, it doesn't make sense. They're just, to me, it's just beyond, it's beyond any sort of logic.
And what makes me mad is like a lot of people with opinions about it don't know what it's like to even be a woman. In the sense that I have a friend who has really bad PCOS. PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So it's like a hormonal imbalance. And for her, the PCOS is really bad. She gets really bad acne. Her period would last at times like 2 weeks. She gets really bad dysmenorrhea. And then she puts on weight like crazy. So for her, it wasn't just even about like, oh, I just want to have sex and not get pregnant. For her, it was a major health issue.
It's affecting her lifestyle.
Yeah, because she couldn't get out of bed. Yeah. She was depressed. And, her acne flare-ups were really, really, really bad. And it was a really, dysmenorrhea for her was painful. And for me, it's also like that. Like, my dysmenorrhea, since we're already talking about it, let's put it out there.
This part of the conversation.
My dysmenorrhea would sometimes be so bad at one point, like I fainted in a mall, like I passed out in a mall because it was so bad. Or one time I was walking around UP and then all of a sudden I can't walk anymore. Like I had cold sweat, I couldn't walk. So these things are really important for me, even outside the context of being in a sexual relationship. For me, this is because I thought for a while that really bad dysmenorrhea, it's normal, every girl goes through it, and then I realized it shouldn't get to the point where you can't walk.
Or it's debilitating.
Or
I remember I was sent to the ER because I also passed out. And there would be days back in college when I'd have to stop my classes because I would be too weak to go on. So it's even affecting studies. Yeah, so
let me put this.
So this is more than really just about like making choices for you, like sexually. It's really a reproductive health issue. And I guess that's the thing though, people dismiss it as lahat naman ng babae pinagdadaanan yan. But it shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't have to suffer every time you get your period and just be helpless and have no control over it.
I also want to point out that this is not just a women's issue. Like you also have to bring the men to the conversation. Like I remember when I first in my previous relationship, what we would do is we would split the cost of the birth control pill.
That's what I do now.
Yeah, because I mean, it takes two to tango, so to speak. So I was very glad that I had a partner back then who was very supportive of me, but that isn't normally the case for a lot of women. Yeah.
And it's not cheap. Like,
I
I
know,
know,
it's
especially
not
for
expensive.
that I'm currently taking. Also, I just spent 2 years in Indonesia, which is obviously a conservative Muslim country. But believe it or not, the pills that I'm taking there is half price here because again, you know the subsidies and all of that. Alcohol there is obviously double the price, but you know, give or take. But you know, this is a cost that I don't think a woman has to bear alone and financially.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a long-term loving relationship, I think that it's something that should be discussed and that should be split. It's a double responsibility. In fact, you know, I'm having to be the one to take it. I should really make my partner be the one to pay for it. Yeah, and I think that's a healthy discussion to have because I think from the get-go, it should be emphasized that this affects everybody, double responsibility.
Yeah, it affects everybody.
I think that's an important message. Birth control is a shared responsibility between you and your partner. That is such an important message. Both the responsibility in terms of, you know, planning and also, yeah, the cost. It can really add up. I used to take a pill that was about 800 pesos a month. And then my doctor that's just about close to 10,000 pesos a year for birth control. But a doctor told me that I could buy another one that was like a generic substitute. And so the one I'm taking now is about 200 or a little over 200. So can you imagine that kind of cost disparity? So those are choices that we need to have access to. And I totally agree. Birth control is a shared responsibility.
Right. Nikki Luna commented, she says reproductive health should be provided by the state. So aside from partners being involved, it should also be a state responsibility because it's a health issue. It's a women's health issue, which will bring us up to our next topic, the TRO and the context of it. So in 2015, there was a TRO. And there's a recent decision that came out that basically said the 2015 TRO will be lifted with FDA compliance. So basically what the TRO covers, Anna, jump in if I'm getting this wrong. So what the TRO covers are like the certifications of pills and other birth control methods like implant and things like that. Because someone brought it up that these things were abortifacients. So they had this whole discussion about it. And then now, from my understanding, is the Supreme Court brought it back, the responsibility back to the FDA, basically saying that if you say this is bad science, we could just lift the TRO. So, but this is a point of concern because according to the Commission on Population, 23 contraceptives remain available. And by 2018, 90% of our contraceptives will no longer be available because the TRO stopped the distribution. So basically, your FDA certifies these things, right? The implants, the pills, and then these certifications expire. So by 2017, this year, 29% will expire. By next year, another 29% will expire. And in 2019, we will be left with 10% of what we already had, and by 2020, that's 2%. And 2% is, I think, if I recall correctly, it's just one more brand left. So basically, nag-expire siya every year, and then the longer this TRO is in place, we wouldn't be able to buy these things anymore because they wouldn't be distributed.
Yeah.
So
the fewer choices you have. I mean, not like what Natasha said. Not every pill doesn't fit everybody. There's no one pill that fits everybody. So if there's only one pill left that's allowed, it's not guaranteed that it will work for you. So your choices are really like obliterated, basically.
So let us know what you guys think about this in the comment section. On my end, it's kind of scary because I'm trying to get back on it. I had to stop because I was taking medication every day for a different condition. And that medication is expensive. So I had to stop because baka may affects yung medication that I take every day with the pills. But I am consulting with my doctor now kasi I can't not be on the pill. I was getting hormonal breakouts. My migraines are really bad, so I need to get back on it. And then yung fear ko is that by the time I have to take it, and then I have to switch a brand, baka hindi na siya available. So, what will happen to me is, yung matitira na lang sa akin na option would be pain management, basically. So, I don't know, that scares, para sa naman. So it scares me that I'm looking at a future where I will just have to live with this in pain, you know. So that's my personal experience. It concerns me, obviously, because I'm worried about limited options for myself in the future. And of course, for everyone else, I'm also concerned. Because you need to experiment with these things. Kasi
we need to have a society where people freely choose to have children because they can support them.
Yeah.
Not because of an accident. We need to have a society where we are confident that we can be able to provide for the children that we have. And this TRO will greatly affect that. And the more, what do you call this? Sorry.
G here, she covers her health needs. She clarifies what's good about this latest decision by the SC is that it clarifies that the TRO only covers contraceptives that the petitioners proposed, which are your implants.
Okay.
Do you have experience with implants or no?
Do we need to have this discussion about what implants are? It's a fairly new reproductive technology. So should we just also go into what they are? Okay, so
implants. I think we've been so focused on pills, but it's important to Anna, please.
Many more options actually.
So implants are these they're like little matchsticks, and then they implant them in your upper arm. So there's a local anesthesia, and it's really it takes a few minutes. They implant it. They literally insert it in your upper arm, and it provides contraceptive protection of up to 3 years. That's why it's so popular in the communities, because women don't want to think about having to take a pill every day.
Right.
Also, their husbands or they don't want to wear condoms or use condoms. They like injectables because it's 3 months, precisely because of that time factor. So when they were given an option for birth control that would give them protection for 3 years, they love it. Okay, that's why it became instantly a preferred contraceptive method. Now, again, it's a new technology, so that's why it was questioned. Ano to? What does it do? Is it really an abortive fashion, etc., etc.? It went back to that discussion. I agree with G that the new decision of the Supreme Court that was released last Friday, it clarified that the TRO was only on implants. But I would like to emphasize that even this, we should not be complacent about. We should not allow a TRO on implants. Okay, these have been certified as non-abortifacients. Okay, it's in the same way that the pills have been, and other hormonal contraceptives like the vaginal ring, the IUD, and all of that. Okay, it's gone through that process already. So we shouldn't be complacent about any kind of restriction placed on the distribution of these implants. If you remember when the TRO was first issued, we had just gotten a donation from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for implants. So it was a new technology. It was a couple of thousand pesos, but because of the donation or the subsidy that we got from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the DOH was able to purchase it for just a few hundred pesos. And that was a huge savings. That's why there's now 500,000 units of the implants that are just sitting there waiting for this TRO to be lifted. That's why we also should lobby for the FDA should, it's now up to them according to this decision to say that these are not abortifacients and then, certify them. We should get moving on that really quickly. The stock that we have right now is just waiting to be distributed to these women and these communities that are clamoring for it.
Yeah, so I was just in Iloilo in the last couple of days, and I was actually doing a story on incest rape, which is another problem that's not discussed. But that said, what I learned is that a lot of these local communities, even in far-flung, barangays, they actually look for implants. They ask for implants. Yeah. So they've gone to health centers asking for these, and it's heartbreaking because we provided for them. But there's definitely a demand, there's an interest, and that's what's so sad is that let's say we've gone, let's say that in some communities it's gone past the information stage, they've learned about it, and there's hope, and then they can't access it. So it's just this vicious cycle of educating them, and then when you've educated them, there's no access to it, and then it's just a hopeless cycle.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Sisyphean climb. Like you get to a point, and then it just like take 2 steps forward and 4 steps back.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends who were actually lucky enough to get these implants for free, and I want in on that. Because think about it, you don't have to think about it for 3 years. Granted, of course, you still have to use condoms because implants will not stop you from getting STDs. So just put that out there. But at the same time, just like the peace of mind, knowing that I'm a forgetful person. I will skip a few pills.
Yeah.
But just to have this worry-free thing as a backup, and it's for free. So we were talking about like having to split the costs and things like that, but then with implants ready to be given out for free, it just takes a whole load off your back. Right?
That's what's insane about it. It's just that there's this very clear, very solid clamor for reproductive health, and we can't get it, and it's being taken away from us. So we really have to do something. We really have to speak up. You have to talk about it to the people you care about as well.
Right.
And we want more voices from young girls like you, saying that this is important, saying that this is a right, saying that, there's nothing wrong with this. This is your right to your health. This is a right to education. And I'm so glad that you guys are coming out to say this. And I hope to hear more voices from more women out there. The same clamor that we see in the communities for birth control, for access and information. I want to see more girls saying that.
I mean, it's exactly what you said earlier, Anna. Like we have to. First of all, I think I think that you don't give them access to contraceptives, they're going to stop. That just isn't the way logic works. I mean, I think anyone who, and that's what's mind-boggling to me as well, is that everybody knows reality. They've gone through this if you're not already going through it. And I think the language and the lingo that we use is important. It's okay to have sex as long as you practice safe sex. And if you're, you know the consequences of your actions, and I think, if there's that sort of openness and acceptance, then we can go on and talk into deeper things. In schools, teachers don't even acknowledge this, or even, it's just to them, it's just taboo, and it's not happening. It's only for married couples, but it's just not the reality. Not just in the Philippines, but in any society. And there's no shame in that. It's human nature. And if you just go through that first barrier, which I really think is a healthy society that talks about sex, the same way we talk about food, is I think the first step.
Right. So we're just going to go through some of your comments. You have Joe Aguila. She says, reproductive health should not be different from, say, heart health, gastrointestinal health, brain health. We deserve information about our bodies, and we deserve the best medical option available to us. That there are limits or access to what could be our best and healthiest option. Someone else, Juana Meran, says, reproductive health covers a lot of areas: maternal health, teenage pregnancy, overpopulation, HIV. It's shooting a flock of birds with just one stone. So coming off from what Natasha said, we should have a healthier discussion about being sex positive, because people will be having sex. And it's a taboo issue. We need to get over it. We need to snap out of it and have more healthier conversations. And what I find hopeful about this generation is that I feel like we're very open about it on social media.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many areas for us to be able to talk about it, and we're kind of fearless when we're talking about it. Hindi na tayo nagkakahiya-hiyaan.
Yeah.
And then when people are, slut shaming, that's a whole other thing right there.
Yeah.
When people shaming other women for having sex, I think we're quick to rally around each other and say, hey, that's not cool. You're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to speak up. Don't think that you're being like an armchair activist or whatever.
Armchair activist.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you're speaking up will do a world of help. It will encourage people. Like it will help your friends or people around you see that, hey, this person who's close to me is talking about it. That means that I can talk about it too, because there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah.
And guys, can I just go back again to the TRO? We are at a stage where it was the first TRO was issued 2015. So we've had the TRO for almost 2 years now. It's a little about 18 months or so. So the Popcom has already released some projections about how there's been a number of unplanned pregnancies, and also there's been a number of maternal deaths related to the limited or restricted access to birth control. Now, it's 2017. We cannot have a country where birth control is being phased out right under our noses. Okay, so I can't even begin to wrap my head around that. And I work in this circle when advocates told me that this was going to be the effect of the TRO. I had to sit down with them and ask them 3 times, what? There's going to be no birth control in the country? It's incomprehensible. And it's really an infringement on our right to access these medications, which for the various reasons you ladies mentioned, we should have access and a right to. And so I think now the push should be, we were knocking on the Supreme Court's door with our petitions, telling them lift the TRO. Now we need to kind of include the FDA, because the ball has been passed to them, to say that, hey, the Supreme Court says, hey, this only covers implants. So do your job, certify them, or tell us why they're not abortifacients, and then we'll, allow you to register them. So now we need to knock on the doors of the FDA. Because if we don't, and we can't let implants slip, you know what I mean? Because if you let one slip and say, okay, there's a ban on it, then you set a precedent for all the other birth control methods, all the other birth control pills that are options that are available. And we cannot do that. Okay? Women and men need options, because your birth control page, Margie, Natasha, may not be the one that's appropriate for me and my lifestyle and my personal choices and what my partner and I want. So that's why choices are so important.
Absolutely. And the irony also, when I've been talking to service providers for those living with HIV and AIDS, and obviously, like what Juana said earlier, is that this bill covers a wide gamut of things, right? It's not just women's health. It's so many things. A lot of them sex related, which is why again we need to talk about this openly. But it's sad because in a way they said, this RH bill actually put us back, because implants were available and birth control pills were readily available, and now we're here sitting waiting for the possibility that it could be completely gone from Philippine shelves, in a year, which is again not what you wanted. It's almost like you had a victory, and it's 10 steps back. So we can't let that happen, and we can't get complacent, obviously. And I agree with Anna that the fight is beyond now just the Supreme Court, right? It's really, if it's the FDA, it's the FDA. But we really have to rally and have to talk about this and really understand the bill to be able to argue intelligently with people who are too lazy to read, and to be able to explain to them exactly why this is not an abortifacient and why that argument does not make any sense.
It can't hurt to read. That's a very specific action you can take. Another specific action you can take is to directly contact the FDA.
Why not?
I just had an image of girls calling right now.
Yeah, do it old school. Really make yourselves heard, make yourselves felt. I mean, it really can't hurt for you to do that.
No, totally.
So,
we shared there's a link to the e-petition for asking for people to sign in about lifting the TRO. We got 300,000 signatures on that petition, and that was what was presented to the Supreme Court last Friday. But now we should keep on adding to that. So if you guys share the link, tag 10 of your friends and get them to sign it as well. In one column, I think we added the email address of the Supreme Court. We asked our readers, write them. Tell them why you need birth control. Yes, if they have to know, they have to know. Now it's the FDA. Let's write to the FDA. Find them on their Facebook page. Let's be polite, but let us be also firm, okay, about why our rights should be protected and respected. And we need to do this now, okay? It's not just about rallying. We are running out of time. We are running out of time. There's a warehouse of implants that are about to expire. So, and that's money that's been spent. Those are taxpayer pesos that have been spent on those implants. So we should just do this now. Get the FDA to do their job quickly.
Right. I think it's important, Anna. Thank you for letting us know, and everybody watching know what are the concrete steps we can take. Because it's great to be talking about it on Facebook and commenting, but actually there's a lot more you can do. You know, to actually write them. It'll take you 5 minutes if you can troll someone on Facebook. Write a good, pleasant 5-minute message to the FDA and to sign a petition. Anna, are you aware if it's going to be a new petition for the FDA, or is it going to be the same one?
I'm not. I reached out to them last Friday, but at the time I think it was only the media who had gotten the notice yet. So they wanted to wait until they saw the actual decision, the full decision, before getting back to me to comment on it. So I'm not sure about that, Natasha. And it's something that we should continue to monitor. But again, what you ladies mentioned are very concrete steps. We need to make our voices heard. And I'm so glad everybody in this panel emphasized that we can nicely and respectfully make our comments and our feelings heard and listened to.
Right. So to wrap this up, G here mentioned that, your concrete steps could be as simple as talking to your social circles, make sure that everyone is on the same boat. Make no room for misinformation, fake news, whatever that is. If someone is being wrong or saying things that you know are wrong, definitely speak up, correct that, change that mindset. Second, write to the FDA. Third, that I was just thinking about when I was thinking of concrete steps, is that there are groups, women's groups and organizations that are really lobbying and have been working for this their whole lives. Like for me, I have friends from Girl Gang Manila who are very vocal about this and are working with these different organizations to help come up with a collective action together, so we could find the right steps to talk to the right people about these things. So yeah, that's it. That's my takeaway from this entire discussion. Final thoughts.
I just think it's really important for us to understand that this is a very crucial topic. Like, this is not just a topic that we'll talk about for International Women's Health Day. This is really something that will affect us for the rest of our lives and for our children's lives and, forever. So this is something that we have to see with utmost urgency.
I think for me, involve the men in the discussion. This is not just our problem, it's their problem as well. Again, this is a shared responsibility, both reproductive health as well as taking care of babies. So involve the men in your lives in this conversation, make them understand why this is important to us. A lot of positions of power, those in power are men as well, so it's important for them to realize how this affects us and the women in their lives, their daughters, their wives, their mothers. So this is a conversation not just for women on International Women's Health Day, but forever with the rest of the population. Anna?
And you guys covered everybody, the women, the men, so I'll just cover the parents like me. Okay. The parents like me, I always get emails or questions from parents about how they should start talking to their kids about sex and consent and everything that comes with it. You can actually make this Supreme Court TRO an entry point to a discussion. Simplify it according to the age of your child, of course, but this is an inroad. People are always asking, how do I start? Let's make this a starting point. Okay, maybe this can be an introduction for parents and for children to start this discussion about sexual health. Let's start it from the basis of rights. Okay, and why we should have it is our right to have access to these services and this kind of information, and why the Supreme Court and the FDA should uphold this right.
Right. So I think that's it for us today. Do tune in on Raptor. We will, apart from having news and updates about what will be going on and what's happening from G, Anna, and all our other reporters. We will also be actively taking part in sharing with you guys steps that we could take to further this fight, because it's not over. Don't get complacent.
Nope, it's not over.
Yeah, so I think there will, in the next few days, there will be 100 days of action. So do tune in for that. And we will be keeping you posted about what you can do to help us out. So thank you for joining us. It's lunchtime.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Anna.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Happy Sunday.
Videos frozen.
Our videos.